The state of Louisiana has officially stepped into the chemtrail debate with legislation. In May 2025, the Louisiana House of Representatives passed a bill aimed at banning the intentional dispersion of substances into the atmosphere, specifically targeting what the bill refers to as chemtrails and weather modification. The move quickly drew national attention, not only because of the controversial subject matter, but because it touches on the larger conversation between conspiracy theories and science, state rights and federal regulation, and truth versus belief. So what's really in this bill? Why are Louisiana lawmakers suddenly focused on what's happening in the skies? And how does the scientific community respond to growing concerns and conspiracy theories about weather manipulation through aerial spraying? In this video, we're breaking down House Bill 717, also known as Louisiana's Chemtrail legislation. We'll explore exactly what the bill says, why it was introduced, what its supporters believe, and how scientists view the claims behind it. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about laying out the facts so you can decide for yourself. Let's begin with the basics. What's actually written in the legislation? House Bill 717 was introduced in the Louisiana House of Representatives and passed with a strong majority vote. It's currently under review in the state Senate. The bill specifically prohibits the intentional injection, release, or dispersion of substances into the atmosphere when the purpose is to affect weather patterns, temperature, or the amount of sunlight that reaches the ground. In plain terms, the bill aims to ban any practice that involves altering the environment through substances sprayed from aircraft, the kind of activity that supporters of the bill associate with so-called chemtrail programs. The language is intentionally broad. It doesn't refer to any one program or agency, and it doesn't present evidence that such spraying is actively taking place. Instead, the bill targets the concept of deliberate atmospheric interference, regardless of who might be responsible. Some backers describe it as a precautionary ban, intended to prevent the possibility of future experiments that could affect public health, weather, or the climate. Supporters of House Bill 717, including its primary sponsors in the Louisiana legislature, say they're responding to a wave of concern from residents. According to them, people across the state have reported unusual patterns in the sky, strange emissions from planes, and symptoms they believe could be linked to substances in the air. Some legislators have emphasized that the bill isn't about conspiracy theories, but rather about respecting constituents' concerns and making sure the air isn't being tampered with without consent or oversight. They argue that even if large-scale weather modification isn't currently happening, laws like this one send a clear message. Louisiana wants control over its skies and a say in any atmospheric experimentation that could impact its environment or public health. But here's where things get interesting and more complex. The bill's text makes specific references to geoengineering and solar radiation modification, two terms that come straight from legitimate scientific research. These are not fringe ideas. In fact, both are being actively studied by leading climate scientists as potential emergency tools to combat global warming. Solar radiation modification, or SRM, refers to theoretical strategies that aim to reflect a portion of the sun's energy back into space, reducing global temperatures. One of the most discussed methods involves injecting aerosols, like sulfur dioxide, into the upper atmosphere to mimic the cooling effects of volcanic eruptions. Another method involves brightening clouds over the ocean by spraying them with fine seawater droplets. These ideas are highly controversial in the scientific community. They remain experimental, largely untested in the real world, and come with serious ethical, environmental, and geopolitical risks. No government or institution has publicly acknowledged deploying SRM technologies at any meaningful scale, at least not yet. But research continues, and the conversation is growing, especially as climate change accelerates. Geoengineering, more broadly, refers to any large-scale effort to manipulate Earth's climate system. It includes SRM, but also methods like carbon dioxide removal, ocean fertilization, and glacier protection technologies. Scientists are debating whether geoengineering should be considered a last resort, a moral hazard, or a necessary part of the climate response toolbox. So when Louisiana's bill includes terms like geoengineering and solar radiation modification, it's dipping into very real scientific territory. But instead of regulating or guiding the research, the bill bans these practices outright within the state's jurisdiction, regardless of intent or scientific merit. That raises an important question. Is the Louisiana House trying to block fringe conspiracies, real science, or both? Depending on your viewpoint, this could be seen either as a protective move, ensuring that no experimental technology is forced on the public, or as a law that potentially misunderstands or oversimplifies complex scientific efforts. And that's exactly why this bill has sparked such a big reaction online and in the news, because it sits at the intersection of political action, public skepticism, and emerging science. So how does the scientific community respond to this? Most climate scientists and atmospheric researchers draw a clear distinction between legitimate environmental science and the concept of chemtrails. The term chemtrails isn't used in peer-reviewed research. Instead, scientists refer to contrails, short for condensation trails, which form when hot jet engine exhaust meets cold upper atmosphere air, causing water vapor to freeze into visible ice crystals. This process is completely normal and has been observed since the early days of aviation. The chemtrail theory, however, claims that these trails contain chemicals intentionally sprayed into the atmosphere for secret purposes, such as weather control, population manipulation, or undisclosed geoengineering. These claims have been circulating for decades, often fueled by social media, anecdotal sightings, and misunderstood or misrepresented documents. Despite the speculation, no credible scientific evidence has ever confirmed the existence of a global or government-run chemical spraying program. In fact, a peer-reviewed 2016 study surveyed 77 top atmospheric scientists and geochemists. 76 of them reported no evidence supporting the chemtrail theory. Agencies like NASA, the EPA, the FAA, and NOAA have all issued public statements rejecting the idea that chemtrails exist. In summary, the scientific consensus is clear. Contrails are real and well understood, while chemtrails, as described by conspiracy theories, are not supported by science. Major agencies including NASA, the EPA, the FAA, and NOAA have all issued statements denying the existence of chemtrail programs. In fact, a 2016 peer-reviewed study published in the journal Environmental Research Letters surveyed 77 atmospheric scientists and geochemists. The result? 98% of them reported no evidence of secret atmospheric spraying. So where does that leave us? Supporters of the Louisiana bill argue that even if chemtrails aren't officially acknowledged, governments should have the right to ban potential atmospheric experiments until more is known. Critics argue that legislation like this lends credibility to misinformation and may undermine public understanding of real climate science. To be clear, there are real technologies being tested that could be confused with what chemtrail believers describe. Cloud seeding, for example, is a well-established practice where planes or rockets release particles like silver iodide into clouds to encourage rain or snow. It's been used in China, the United States, and other countries. However, cloud seeding is local, regulated, and typically used in drought-affected areas. It's not secretive, it's not widespread, and it's not the same as spraying chemicals across the sky for global climate control. There are also real research programs into geoengineering, including solar radiation management. Institutions like Harvard, MIT, and the University of Oxford have all conducted studies to explore the ethical, scientific, and environmental implications of these technologies. The idea is to develop emergency climate response tools in case global warming reaches catastrophic levels. But again, nothing on a global scale has been deployed, and many scientists oppose the idea entirely due to the risks and unknowns. So is the Louisiana bill responding to real danger or public fear? That depends on your perspective. For some, it's a sign that governments are finally paying attention to grassroots concerns, whether those concerns are scientifically grounded or not. For others, it's a troubling sign that legislation is being driven by misinformation and distrust in science. There's also a political layer to this. In recent years, more state-level lawmakers, especially in conservative states, have introduced or supported legislation based on theories that question mainstream science. From vaccines to climate change, to 5G, and now chemtrails, we're seeing a growing pattern of states taking these issues into their own hands. But even if the motives are questionable, some argue the conversation has value. If more people are asking questions about climate science, atmospheric research, and environmental ethics, maybe that opens the door for better public education and transparency in government science programs. On the flip side, when laws are based on conspiracy theory language, it can blur the line between fact and fiction, making it harder for people to know what to believe. At the end of the day, House Bill 717 doesn't establish that chemtrails are real. What it does show is that belief in them is widespread enough to influence legislation. That's worth paying attention to, regardless of where you stand on the issue. So what do you think? Is the Louisiana Chemtrail bill a necessary precaution, or just political theater? Is there real danger in atmospheric experimentation, or is this just another chapter in the age of misinformation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Keep it civil, keep it curious, and bring your best arguments. This is Tech on the Mind, where policy, science, and public belief all meet.